Well, Alberto, first of all, thank you for interviewing today. Thank all of you for coming. Thank you for having the new Americans Expo, and the anti-immigrant language you're hearing from Donald Trump is very disturbing, and I'll get to that in a minute. First, I just want to say what an honor it has been to represent the 8th Congressional District, which is a very diverse district, and with that diversity has come great dynamism. You know, my father's family was originally from Baltimore. He went into the Navy, and he met my mom. They were both interested in foreign policy issues. My dad went in the Foreign Service, and they were a real team. And so I actually grew up many of my early years overseas. And what's wonderful about this area is you have so many people from all different parts of the world, as reflected in the room here, coming to live in Montgomery County in Maryland in the United States of America. And I do believe that provides incredible vitality to our country. So I'm hoping that after this election, that the public will send a very strong signal at the ballot box in Maryland and around the country that that kind of poison is unacceptable in the United States. And I'm hoping then we can have the different parties work together in Congress and with the next president of the United States to tackle some of the big issues that we face in this country. Building an economy that works for everybody, dealing with immigration reform, making sure that we address important budget issues and invest in education, from the earliest education through K through 12, make sure our students don't graduate from college with these debts so that they're burdened right from the start. We got a lot of work to do.
Do you feel confident as a Democrat running in this state, even in an environment where anti-Washington feelings keep growing, and with a Republican governor in Annapolis? Do you see yourself as an easy ride?
No, I'm not taking anything for granted. Working very hard. I will say, though, for the record, that I will accept the outcome of the Maryland Senate race. I'm working very hard. I'm reaching out to all parties to talk to people, and not just talk to Democrats. I mean, we talked to independents and reaching out to a lot of Republicans. Republicans who in this environment are especially unhappy with their nominee. You know, back in the day, I worked for a Maryland Republican U.S. Senator. His name was Mac Mathias. He was a great role model. He's somebody who worked across party lines to get things done. He always said he was from the party of Lincoln. And you know, if you look at our history, that was a very noble tradition. I think if you talk to a lot of Republicans today, they'll feel that their party has abandoned them in many ways.
Is raising minimum wage a challenge to economic growth? Aren't jobs and opportunities more important than minimum wage issues?
I think the issue is whether there has to be some basic minimum wage in this country that allows people to have at least some ability to live and at a decent level. We've had a minimum wage in the United States for a long time. And then the question is, what level should it be? And the reality is that the national minimum wage today of $7.25 does not begin to match in purchasing power what it was you know, more than 20, 30 years ago. So I believe we need to make sure we have a minimum wage that at least ensures that if you work full-time, 40 hours a week, all year long, that you're not below the federal poverty level. Two other points. To the extent that someone's being paid that minimum wage, taxpayers are going to have to make up for it in terms of the medical care that we provide through Medicaid or food and nutrition programs. I mean, if you're below the federal poverty level, you are eligible for certain supports that make sure that you can continue to at least live. And to the extent that people are not getting a basic minimum wage, taxpayers. Secondly, Henry Ford had it right. Henry Ford, when he was manufacturing cars, he wanted to pay his workers enough money so that the workers who were assembling those Ford cars on the assembly line could buy those cars. Because the best way to generate more economic activity is to make sure that people have a living wage so that they can go out and live. And living means purchasing goods and services from small businesses and middle-sized businesses and larger businesses in our community. So in my view, we can have a discussion over what level the minimum wage should be or how quickly we should get there, but I support a minimum wage.
I once wrote that life is like our metro system. Nothing works 100%. Myself and many in our workforce in the area knows this reality. And then there is the paradox. 50% of our federal workforce is carried by metro, but the federal government does not give money to the system. What about federal money to help fund metro? I know that you are a supporter of Purple Line and all that stuff.
Yes.
Let's talk transportation for a second.
The metro system and the health of the metro system is really necessary to the lifeblood and health of this whole region. And in fact, the federal government, as indicated earlier, starting in the early 2000s, does provide $150 million a year to Metro. In fact, I teamed up with Tom Davis and Steny Hoyer, and that makes the Washington metro system the only metro system in the entire country that gets a special $150 million or any allocation above the formula, right? Every metro system gets certain funds from the Federal Transit Administration according to a formula. We need to meet the challenge of the metro system in this region in identifying some long-term sustainable funding source. In fact, the Washington Post, and I'm pleased to have received the Washington Post endorsement today, but the Washington Post has been writing The Washington Post has been writing a series of articles about the need for this dedicated funding source for the Washington Metro. We're about the only metro system in the nation that does not have a dedicated funding source. The way it works here is all the jurisdictions, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, each year go to their legislators or whatever in their state capitals and put in their state contributions. There's no guaranteed stream of money. It depends each year on the goodwill of the state legislatures. Now, they have obviously become part of that contribution, but it's not a guarantee.
Immigration reform is needed to manage a workforce the country needs, but also to help long-term immigrants to become new Americans. Sir, how do you feel about walls, deportations, and the immigration issue? I know it's too broad, but I need a short answer.
Number one, need to fix our ongoing, sort of legal immigration system because it's very cumbersome and broken, and there are long lines. With respect to immigration reform, I have supported comprehensive immigration reform. There was a piece of legislation that people know passed the United States Senate on a bipartisan basis many years ago. Not perfect, wouldn't have written it exactly that way myself, but it was supported by a bipartisan coalition, including Senator Marco Rubio, including John McCain, including Lindsey Graham. And by the way, in the Republican primary, you saw Marco Rubio getting beaten up by his colleagues, including Trump, for that comprehensive immigration reform. That had two main elements. One, it did enhance border security in lots of different ways. But second, it also provided a pathway, first to legalization and ultimately over a long period of time to citizenship for people who were here, who had not broken the law, who were paying their taxes, and to make sure that we brought people into the open and out of the shadows. And I'm going to just close with emphasizing a couple of points that you raised in your question. This is also really good for our economy. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, these aren't Republicans, these aren't Democrats, these are the green eye shades folks. They looked at that bipartisan comprehensive bill, and they concluded that it would dramatically increase economic growth in the country, number one. Number two, it would actually strengthen the solvency of the Social Security system. Why? More workers who are not working in the underground economy, more workers who are working in the above ground economy and therefore paying fully their Social Security taxes. Some already are, people who are in the underground. But this would have 100% of people paying their Social Security taxes, not allowing employers to really, discriminate and essentially abuse people who are in the underground economy. And in the process would strengthen Social Security because then clearly you have more younger workers helping support those who are on Social Security and, looking around the room, people like me who one day will be on Social Security. And that's an important argument to make. This is not, there are lots of important elements to it, but we should not forget the economic arguments in favor of immigration reform.